So hi, everybody. I'm Eric. I'm now an at-large representative to the state convention from Hampton. So thank you all for electing me to that position. I'm really honored to be part of this awesome committee. And I was really excited and honored to have as our guests tonight, Senators Tom Sherman and Rebecca Perkins Kwoka, to talk to us about their efforts to fight partisan redistricting in the state of New Hampshire and what we can do to help them and help ourselves and help stop the Republicans in this state from doing everything in their power to cancel our votes. And I think that really when you think about what Rennie was sharing about his efforts to get access for our representatives to participate in the legislative process, to the efforts that our senators are making to fight partisan redistricting, the GOP is engaged in an all-out war to rig the process because they know as well as we do that this state is changing. And as I was preparing for this meeting, I was reminded of a quote from my favorite movie, The Princess Bride. And in it, they say, death can't stop true love. The worst it can do is just delay it for a while. And I think that that's the truth when it comes to progress in the state of New Hampshire, right? Nothing can stop progress. Partisan redistricting and efforts to rig the legislative process by excluding our representatives, none of that is going to stop progress in this state because we are on the move, right? The worst they can do is delay it a while. So we've got these really awesome righteous fighters with us tonight sharing about all the work that they're doing to make that true. And there's a role for all of us, and we'll take some time tonight to share some action steps that we can take to make that happen. So the first thing that I'd love to do is just have everybody quickly introduce themselves in the chat. If you could just share your name and something you hope to learn tonight about redistricting, that would be really great. So just in the chat, your name, which is also right there in your name when you post your chat message. So that might be a little redundant, but something you're really interested in learning tonight about partisan redistricting. We'll just take a moment to take a look at those questions. And while you're doing that, I'll share that at the end of tonight's meeting, we'll have some time for a Q&A with the senators and anyone else who'd like to chime in. And so what we'll do is I have a document, and Matt and Tyler, who are helping me tonight facilitate, will be pulling your questions from the chat as the night goes along. And then we'll throw this in a Google Doc, and I'll facilitate a little Q&A at the end to just kind of get those questions answered and get a chance to hear from everybody and hopefully really drill down into what this process looks like. So this is great. I see some questions rolling in already. General info, what we can do about it. Yeah, keep those questions coming. And then at any point where you have a question, just pop that into the chat box tonight. Great. Oh, great question from Tom Loffman. Thank you. Awesome. How to stop it. That's great. All right. So while people are posting their questions and introductions there in the chat, I'm just going to do a quick land acknowledgement. So this meeting is coming to you from, and most of us are currently on, Indakina, which is the traditional ancestral homelands of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land and waterways of the Alvanac people who have stewarded Indakina through the generations. Thank you. So as I said, we have an awesome lineup tonight. We've got Senators Rebecca Perkins Kwoka and Tom Sherman, who've been fighting relentlessly for New Hampshire working families and, importantly, the integrity of our democracy. And they're going to share with us what they've been doing to fight that corrupt partisan redistricting process. And again, thank you very much to Chris, to our whole executive committee, to Matt and Tyler for helping prepare for tonight's event. And just to kick us off before we hear from Senator Perkins Kwoka, I wanted to quickly share with you a video, which we're going to ask you to share on social media that Tyler and Matt put together, that is a little local Hampton-based introduction to the partisan redistricting process. So just give me a moment while I share my screen and pull that up. And we can enjoy this awesome little product here from Tyler and Matt. All right, here we go. right. Bravo to Matt and Tyler. Thank you very much for creating that. Really excited that our communications team is coming out with so many awesome little shareable products like that that we can start spreading through the community. And like Senator Sherman was saying, really educate voters now so that we can preemptively get our message out and aggressively campaign in advance of the elections in 2022, those all important elections. All right, so first tonight, we're going to hear from Senator Rebecca Perkins Kwoka. So Senator Perkins Kwoka represents the 21st District. She is on the Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee and the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. She's a lawyer by trade, also went to Dartmouth College like me, so awesome, go Big Green. Served in the Peace Corps, and she lives in Portsmouth with her wife and baby daughter. Loves to hike, run, cross-country skiing, and being in the outdoors, which a lot of us can relate to. So it's really an honor to have you here, Senator, and we're excited to hear from you. Take it away.
Yeah, well, it's so nice to be here with you guys. I really enjoyed the first half hour of our meeting here. I can see that this group is full of spitfire and vinegar, so it's always fun to meet Democrats that are ready for the fight. And it's an honor to be here with Leader Cushing and the other representatives who, whatever work we might do in the Senate, I know that it's been an easier go for us so far this year. So I want to thank you for all the work you're doing, and to Leader Cushing, especially for the lawsuit that you brought, because I want you to know that I personally feel protected and fought for by you taking that time and making that effort. So thank you. Yeah, so I'm so excited to be here with you guys tonight and talk about redistricting. Tom and I both asked a surprise cameo guest to join us, Eric Lucas Meyer, who's been an advocate with us too. So hopefully he'll get to answer a couple questions if it's stuff Tom and I don't know. But the overarching theme here is that there have been 2 legislative efforts in the House and 2 in the Senate, all of which have faced very steep uphill battles, and ultimately at this point do not seem to be advancing. And so despite, what I would call the most genuine efforts to protect our democracy and create a New Hampshire that's truly representative, it seems to have reduced, unfortunately, to a partisan battle. So in the Senate, that means 2 bills that Tom and I worked very closely together on. He led on SB 80, which was the bill to require a full independent redistricting commission. And so that would have had members appointed equally by both sides, and would have had a series of procedural rules around it, including meetings that were open to the public, including maps that were easily accessible, including resources that were fairly shared by both sides. And obviously, Tom, I'll let you add to that, but unfortunately that bill came out of my committee, election law, on a partisan vote with a recommendation of inexpedient to legislate. And so that was the fate it met on the Senate floor as well, which means that unfortunately that bill is dead for this year. And some of the rationale that we heard around that was that the meetings will be fair and that they're governed by 91A. But we know from experience that these meetings will be fair if the people who hold them are fair. And in 2010, unfortunately, we did not see the process conducted in a fair way. I can't speak from personal observation about those meetings, but we know that today, the Senate maps across our state are drawn in order to elect 19 Republicans and 5 Democrats. And so we've heard that from Republican officials. We know that the maps were drawn behind closed doors. We know that there was very little public input. And so the fact that we even have 10 Democrats in the Senate, unfortunately, is like a win because the odds are against us. We're only supposed to have 5. And so as Eric said, our progress is inevitable and you can't keep a good thing down. So we're on our way. But, it just means we have to work all the harder in every election. And I think it's emblematic of what's going on the national level. I mean, if you look at the Senate, for example, the US Senate, obviously everyone knows that there's 49 Democrats and an independent who caucuses with the Democrats. There's 50 Republicans. And those Democrats and independent, they represent 41.5 million more voters across our country than the 50 Republicans who are able to keep things like HR 1 and S1, which are the new voting rights legislation, potentially from passing because of the filibuster. And so, the effect of gerrymandering across our country writ large is just that our government really hasn't maintained its element of representation that it really should. Each of these districts should represent an equal number of people. They shouldn't be drawn on a partisan basis, and each of our votes should count equally. And so I know even in my district, of course, to the north of you guys is drawn to be one of the more progressive districts. I represent Portsmouth and Durham and Newmarket. There are Republicans in my district who are quite frustrated by feeling like their vote didn't matter at all either. And I didn't have a lot of sympathy because, they only have their own party to blame. But I think it affects all of us on both sides, and we all want to feel like our system represents us. We all want to feel like fair system, and I don't think it serves any of us to have a few people in Concord, making that decision for all of us. And so the other piece of legislation that we had was SB 90, which was my bill. And again, Tom and I worked very closely on both of these, but it just contained the procedural protections. So not the entire independent redistricting commission, but rather just the rules around the committee that will meet. And it's sort of an attempt to bolster 91A to make sure that all meetings of that commission were public and live streamed, available via digital means. Any maps that were used were available promptly to the public to look at, and any resources that were available to the majority party were available to the minority party. And there's probably other people in the state that can tell this story a little more with more detail than I, but from what I understand, there was essentially a software in 2010 that the Republicans used to draw and propose their maps, and the Democrats didn't have access to that software, and so we really couldn't propose a meaningful counter map. And so, just sort of things that shouldn't be part of our legislative history and sound unfair in their face are things that we're trying to fight against. And so my bill came out of committee also with an ITL recommendation. On the floor of the Senate, the Republicans tabled it, which I think was just sort of a way to avoid looking like they killed it. And so a couple weeks ago, I made a motion on behalf of the Democrats to take it off the table so we could get it over to the House and make it law. And that was defeated on a partisan vote. So unfortunately, both of our pieces of legislation are at this point looking like they won't advance. And, that despite advocates, I think for SB 90, we had 369 people sign in favor and 8 opposed, and so this is just the Republicans kind of acting blatantly against what seems to be public opinion. And not only that, but we know that across the state, there are over 4 towns or cities where they have resolutions passing or under consideration, or were, at least earlier this year, for town warrant or at the select board or at the city council. So we know this matters to people. We know it's a popular issue. As Eric, they're saying, it just increasingly shows how the Republicans are out of touch with their voters and their people. And it's something that we're going to have to use in 2022. But in the meanwhile, there's still important work, I think, to do on this issue. And one of the things I think we'll talk about today is sort of where we can now direct our efforts to make sure this process is fair, since those pieces of legislation unfortunately seem to be stalled. I think that the best place to focus that effort will be on the redistricting committee itself and its members. And so we should talk about that a little bit more. But I don't want to say everything because I want to leave room for Tom to talk about it. But I just, I think it's incredibly important that we all recognize that it shouldn't be a partisan issue. this shouldn't be something we're voting on as Republicans and Democrats. It should absolutely be something that, feels like all of us protecting and stewarding our democracy, and especially in a year where first in the nation primary is so important. And on as a topic of discussion, I think I grew up in a New Hampshire that really valued democracy, valued civic participation, and did that fairly. And so, that's what we're all fighting for here. And I don't think we're giving up easily. And there's a lot we can do. And so let's talk about that more tonight. But I think I'll leave it with two small anecdotes. One is, unfortunately, we saw the defeat last year of Melanie Luke, who was our first ever African-American state senator. And from all accounts, just an excellent senator who was defeated in a district, which includes Ringe and Hollis, which are Republican, obviously, stalwart communities. And so talking to her during the election, she knew she faced an uphill battle, not because of her record, not because of her service, not because of her character, but simply because of the way her district was drawn. And that's not what we want, for our public servants. And lastly, I think, Tom and I being here together tonight is appropriate because I know we're both wondering, whether we're going to be in different districts at the end of all of this. And so it's just another way to kind of come after us as Democrats one by one and pick us off. And so obviously Tom and I'll work that out and we're not worried about it, but we want it to be fair, and we should have good public servants serving and reelected because it's a good job and not for other reasons. So anyway, I'll leave it there, but so happy to be here with you guys tonight and chat and answer more questions throughout the night.
Thank you so much, Senator. That was really informative. And I watch from a distance and I see you and Senator Sherman and the rest of the New Hampshire Dems Senate caucus putting forth like common sense legislation that's good for ordinary working people in the state. And then just time after time, just seeing it shot down and roadblocked. And this legislation that you both put forward to put some guardrails on this process and make it more nonpartisan and fair was just another example of that really common sense legislation that, in a sane world would have ruled the day. So thank you for that. And thank you for helping us understand it. And I will say that you guys may not be worried, but we're worried because we don't want to lose our senator, right? We're so well represented here in Hampton by Senator Sherman, and it would be
Of course.
crying shame and tragedy to lose him. So yeah, absolutely. Lots on the line. So before we shift over to Senator Sherman, I wanted to just take a quick moment to do a little activity where we can just tell the world what we're doing tonight. And so I'd love everybody, if they could, just for a moment to turn their cameras on if they can and are willing, and we can take a quick Zoom selfie. And then we can share that Zoom selfie on Facebook or on Twitter if you're on Twitter, or you can just keep it for posterity and scrapbook it, or you can send it in a text message to your friends and family. We want to let everybody know what we are doing tonight, and because it's important work, and we'll bring more people into the party if they can see how much fun it is to gather together. So don't worry, I'm going to show you really quickly how to do that selfie. Here, let me just share my screen. And I have some very simple instructions. So if you are on a Mac, this is how you take a screenshot. You hit the Command button and then the Shift button and the 3, and that will grab a screenshot and save it on your desktop. And you can use that and you just attach it to a post on Facebook. You can do that now or you can do it later. It should be really great to tell folks what you were doing tonight. And if you're on a PC, and if someone could put this in the chat box, Matt or Tyler, that way people can remember if you're going to click off this screen. So Macs are Control-Shift-3. And then if you're on a PC, it's that little Windows icon, the function button in the bottom left-hand corner of your keyboard, and then the print screen will capture it on a PC if you're not working on a Mac. So go ahead and just drop that in the chat box, Matt or Tyler, so people can see. Again, this is how you do it on a Mac, and this is how you do it on a PC. And don't worry if this tech is feels above your pay grade. That's all right. Text your friends and let them know what you were doing tonight, so that they too feel like they're welcome at this party and they can be a part of our committee. All right, so let's say on the count of 3, we're going to take that screenshot. I'm just getting mine ready. I have my son down here too, so I'm kind of operating one-handed. I'll get him in the screenshot too. All right, so we're going to go to gallery view. We're going to go, if we're on a Mac, with Command-Shift-3, And ready, set, 1, 2, 3, go. All right. And I'm going to do, I got 3 screens here, so I want to make sure I get everybody. Ready? 1, 2, 3, second screen. And third screen, 1, 2, 3. All right, awesome. Oh my God, thank you so much. So we're just gonna pause like for a minute here. If you wanna go ahead and share that on Facebook, that would be incredible. If that's too fast, that's okay. You can do it later or while Senator Sherman is talking, if you can multitask. Making sure you're paying very close attention. But please share this online. And also Matt and Tyler, what should they be tagging here if they're posting on Facebook?
They should probably tag the official, oh, am I on mute? No. The official Hampton Democrats page.
Awesome. So if they just type in Hampton Democrats in their post and
yeah, the Facebook page.
Awesome. And on Twitter, what's our Twitter handle?
Chris, that's one for you. I don't have access to that.
I have it here. Our Twitter handle is at Hampton Dems. And if by chance you're on Instagram we're at Hampton NH Democrats. Hampton NH Democrats on Instagram.
We're happy. We're making it happen on social media. This is awesome. Alrighty. Well, folks are getting ready to post those on their social media.
Where'd the screenshots go?
Where'd the screenshots
I'm gonna
go?
post them on social at some point.
Oh, you'll put them on social. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You can too, you know, and I can share the ones that I just took with you, and I'll put them in the chat box. So if you want to just pull them right out of the chat box, I'm going to put them right there. I should be able to just pull them right out.
I participated last night in something on a platform called Clubhouse. So anybody can learn new technology. I've never felt older because I had no idea what it was.
But if you just want to get a section of the screen, you do Control-Shift-4, right? And then you just pick the portion you want.
Oh, there we go. That's above my pay grade, but I can see Senator Sherman is nodding his head, so I think he knows.
All right, Mike, I did Control-Shift-4 of you and just tweeted that out to the world.
Well, thank you.
No, I'm just kidding.
I posted mine on my MySpace, so it's gonna go.
That is awesome.
Mike, I am so impressed. You've come a long way, baby.
Well, yeah, when you're listening to a presentation and you're not going to give it to you, you just take screenshots of what you want.
That is brilliant. All righty. Well, thanks everybody for bearing with me to do that. It makes a difference for sure. I want to take a moment now to introduce Senator Sherman, who represents us here in District 24. He serves on the Health and Human Services Commission and the Transportation Commission, and he is also a valiant fighter on behalf of the integrity of our democracy. He is a physician, gastroenterologist by trade, and he is married with 3 kids, lives in Rye, I believe, and he's got a lot of awesome musical hobbies: bass guitar, piano, acoustic guitar, as well as water sports. So that's pretty awesome. I didn't actually know that about you until I looked you up on your New Hampshire General Court page, but that's so cool. You're so musical. So Senator Sherman, thank you so much for being here tonight, and take it away.
Thank you very much. The music is a passionate, but it's not a skill. So that's an important delineation. I don't know if anybody has seen the Occasionals play, but we're bound to have a gig this summer, and we're called the Occasionals because we practice occasionally and we play occasionally. I just want to say that this story of redistricting is nothing new to Hampton, and no one knows redistricting better than Chris Munns and me. Chris ran for Senate, and this district is automatically +3 Republican. So it's designed for Nancy, and it was designed for Nancy, just like the executive council seat was designed for Chris Sununu. And that's what redistricting is all about, or gerrymandering is all about. Some people tell me it's called gerrymandering, but in any case, Hampton understands this. Nobody understands it better. And that is a little bit of a segue into me, again, taking off my hat if I were wearing one and saying thank you to the Hampton Dems. Without you, I could not have won this seat. And if anybody wonders what the difference is between a well-organized Democratic committee and a poorly or no Democratic committee. Just look at the difference between Hampton and Seabrook. In Seabrook, I lost by 1,000 votes. In Hampton, we won both in 18 and 20. And so Seabrook is our challenge. And for this district, no matter what they do to it, and I guarantee they're going to make it very difficult to win, we have to organize Seabrook. And we have to get Dems down in Seabrook to really be a part of the party and the process and make sure that we get back the advantage like we've done, not we, like you have done in Hampton. And again, I can't thank you enough. So I just, with that background, since all you need to do is look at your hometown and you know what gerrymandering is, you know what redistricting and the importance of it is, recognize that Democrats have passed at least or introduced at least 4 different bills in the last decade when they had no clue who was going to be in charge during redistricting year. They introduced and worked or introduced and in some cases passed all the way up to the level of the governor, at least 4 bills to ask for independent redistricting. What that means is that Democrats stand for democracy. Democrats stand for independent redistricting. And that charge has been started with people like Margie Smith over in the House. And I actually, the bill that I introduced, SB 80, was Margie's bill. And it wasn't just the original bill. It was the bill that she adapted to every single one of Sununu's criticisms when he first vetoed her bill. And this one was defeated in the Senate. And I think probably one of the most humorous responses in the Senate, and I have to share this because I'm a gastroenterologist, so it's very close to my heart, is that one of the people, actually, this bill was passed on a bipartisan basis in the last Senate. One of the people who worked on it was a fellow committee member of mine. I was on election law as vice chair in the last biennium. He said he had an epiphany while in the bathroom that this was not good for New Hampshire. And he actually shared that on the floor of the Senate when SB 80 was being defeated, that he had a moment in the bathroom where he realized that this was not a bill that was good for New Hampshire. So from my standpoint as a gastroenterologist, I'm always interested in what happens in the bathroom. But that was one thing that I've never heard before, that voting for independent redistricting would not be in your best interests as a country and as a state because of that epiphany. The Rebecca's bills, mine would have set a different process, would have had this independent redistricting advisory council. Senator Perkins Kwoka's bills said, well, if you're not going to do that, at least do it in a transparent way. And the reason they tabled it wasn't, they wanted it to go away without debate. That's what tabling does. So when my bill came up, they didn't table it. We got to say everything we wanted to say. And I think if you want to go back and listen to the debate on SB 80, there was Senator Perkins Kwoka's speech and my speech, which really capture the reason why this is so critical. But when it came to the Senator Perkins Kwoka's bill, they didn't want debate. They didn't want any public reasons being made for transparency and really supporting democracy. So they tabled it. And when you table something, as the legislators know, there's no debate. You have one sentence you can do. And I find that very frustrating. So what can we do moving forward? I think a really great model of what we can do moving forward is 2 things. The first one is what just happened in the state of New Hampshire when they tried to tell out-of-state college students you couldn't get vaccinated. What happened? There was a groundswell of reaction to that. It started with the young Dems, and my hat's off to Lucas Meyer and Tom and Rebecca and others who are in the young Dems. I keep asking to be an honorary member, but they just say I'm too old. But that groundswell was amplified on Twitter, and guess what? The governor caved. The governor did an about face and said, let's let public health move forward. And oh, by the way, now all of a sudden we have enough vaccines. We have enough. It was all a backtrack, but we got where we needed to be. That is a really good example when everybody comes together and is active now and persistently and not giving up to make sure that the redistricting process is open and fair, so that if you're a Republican from Portsmouth, sorry, Senator Perkins Kwoka, but you can actually have your vote count. And if you are a Democrat from Hampton, your vote counts. It's not a +3. I guarantee you, if we don't do this, it's going to be +6 in Hampton. And they're going to make sure that Hampton Dems don't have a vote. So across the state, being able to be sure that we move forward, and thank you to Eric for putting this together, and to Chris and Melanie for hosting. But it's critical that we do that, because right now we can't win in the legislature. We can't win one vote or one person. The only way we can win this battle is to do exactly what the young Dems did on the vaccine question and get active and be persistent. Don't give up. And then the second thing we can do is we can make sure that whatever damage they do with redistricting, we overwhelm it. We overwhelm it at the ballot box. We make sure every single Democrat, every single independent that we can convince comes out and supports, however they redistrict, supports the Democrat in the 2022 election. Because there is no better argument for Democrats being in charge than what's currently happening that Rennie and Tom and Mike have talked about. It's, I have a phrase that if you can't do the compassion thing, if you can't do the sensible thing, at least do the fiscal thing. Fiscally, what is going to happen in Hampton is your property taxes are going to go through the roof. And they're going to go through the roof because of stuff like what Tracy did. And they're going to go through the roof because the Senate just passed a voucher bill that will sharply increase property taxes, and it's bound to go through the House without a problem. Actually, in fact, they put it in the budget. So I'm sorry, they tabled it and they're going to tuck it in the budget so it doesn't even go to the House. This is what's happening, and the way we fight it, you can't depend on the legislature to fight it, because as you've heard tonight, we just don't have the votes. But you have the votes. You have the votes with your social media. You have the votes with your voices, with your emails, and please do it now and all the way up to 2022. Don't give up. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. That was really inspiring, particularly what you said about organizing in Seabrook, which I know is a priority for Chris and everybody on our executive board here in the committee. So I take that call to action very seriously, and I think we've got work to do and that we can do it. So we're going to have one other quick action item, and I promise this one will be even simpler before we move into the Q&A. And this is that video that we shared earlier that Matt and Tyler put together, that short, like 50-second carousel video that we shared at the top. We'd love for you to go to the link that I just posted. That should take you to Facebook, where you can see the link, the video itself. And if you could share that video on Facebook, that would be amazing. So just, oh, hello, Lyndon. If you could just click on that link real quick and share that, you might be able to leave a comment underneath. Something else that the NHGOP does really well is they do a lot of organic posting on online, and we should be doing the same thing, right? We should be really active, just like Matt has been. So go ahead, click on that link and share that video, please. And while you all are sharing that, oh, awesome. Hampton Democrats just posted on Twitter, New Hampshire Republicans are trying to undermine democracy. I'm just retweeting that right now. And I'll drop this link if you're on Twitter into the chat box right here from our very own Hampton Dems Twitter page. Alrighty. So we have a bunch of really great questions, and I know we also have Lucas here, and I can see Rennie's hands up too. I think might give him pride of place with the first question. I also know that we have Lucas Meyer here. Lucas, you want to introduce yourself real quick, and you can help us answer some of these questions?
Sure. Hi, friends. I'm Lucas Meyer. Some of you might know me from my time as president of the Young Dems or helping out with Senator Sherman's race. In my professional, or my other professional lives, I work with the New Hampshire Campaign for Voting Rights and the Fair Maps Coalition, and have been since 2017. Was the one helping push inside the legislature 8706, and I forget the other one we did the following session. So been in the long slog of this fight for a while, but now we're in the fight, and we have a lot of things that we got to do over the next year and a half if we are going to, and I swear I didn't plan this, unrig our democracy. So super excited to have this group here. I don't want to talk too long because I don't want to get in the way of Leader Cushing, because that's a real bad idea. So I'm happy to answer any questions or talk through some of the long-term planning we're doing, which isn't too long-term, it's like coming real fast. But I have like a lot of ideas and a lot of plans and would love to plug folks into it, but I will zip it there and kick it over to Leader Cushing.
All right.
If I might, I mean, I just want to explain how the redistricting process is going to work now. I'll make an observation that, every 10 years we've had challenges, and I'll note in 2010, the redistricting plans that were not agreed upon by the Democrats ended up being challenging, going to the New Hampshire Supreme Court. And it was the New Hampshire Supreme Court that wrote and set up the districts in the year 2000 that I think eventually resulted in 2006 in the House going for Democrats for the first time in a century and a half. I will tell you that, just as an aside, people may know, talked about when the governor vetoed the last redistricting bill. The day he was ready he ended up vetoed the redistricting bill. Earlier, there'd been a conversation with Margie Smith about a signing ceremony. The governor hadn't been intent on signing until he got a call from Scott Walker in Wisconsin, and that created the whole thing. What is going to take place is there has been a special redistricting committee that's been established by the Speaker of the House. It has 8 Republicans and 7 Democrats. I made the appointments of the Democrats, and they are David Cody, who's on the election committee and was on the 1990 redistricting committee. Paul Bergeron, who is a former city clerk in Manchester and Nashua. Lucy Weber, who was on the redistricting committee last year, who was an attorney. Connie Lane on redistricting, who's an attorney. Is Piedra, who's an attorney on it. And finally, Matt Wilhelm, who is the head of CHED. And I did that because it's stacked with lawyers, because I know that in the process of the committee coming up with maps, that I want people who are familiar with the facts, because we're looking ultimately to have litigation involved in that. And I also wanted to have someone who is familiar with what the districts proposed are going to look like, who is going to be involved in recruiting candidates to run for those positions. And so that's what's going on. We're also working, it was alluded to the fact that 10 years ago, the Republicans had sophisticated computers and we were using scratch pads. That's not going to happen in 2021. We're working with a National Democratic Redistricting Committee that is providing, without giving away all the secrets, it is providing resources that we're going to be competitive when it comes to putting out maps to maps. We're not going to lose this on the software and the hardware. The way that it's worked is that there are 6 redistricting bills that have been reintroduced. One relates to Republicans, forget about it, but the 5 bills that matter One is for the House, one's for the Senate, one's for the Executive Council, one's for the congressional districts, and one is for the county delegations. Those 5 bills, they've been introduced, and what they are is those all represent the current configuration, the current allocation of seats based upon the 2010 census. We're originally supposed to begin in June when the census data was supposed to be available in April. When it's June, it's probably not going to come out till the fall. So it means that we're going to be in the fall is when the intensity about redistricting really is going to come to a fore. Where the Democrats and also both, we're advocating now for extensive public hearings so the public can have input into it, and advocating for transparency. You know, the chair of the Election Law Committee, Barbara Griffin, pretends that there'll be some kind of consultative process, but that's not true. That's kind of the lay of the land. Those 5 bills are out there, and each one is going to have a new amount. You know, we'll have new proposed maps coming in. Traditionally, the House, I mean, the Senate, puts in a suggestion to the House what the Senate district should look like. The Executive Council puts in those, and the congressional delegation. I think we're all very wary about what the congressional delegation might look like. Given the pledge of Stepanek that he was going to deliver one of those, we may see, who knows, Chris Pappas and Annie Custer. We may see Hopkinton and Manchester in the same district that they would end up running against them. But that's kind of the lay of the land, what we're doing.
Thank you, Rennie. And so that gives me the sense that our target is really that committee, right? And the folks on that committee need to be pressured to hold those open meetings and to be upfront and showing us those maps when they're proposed. There are some questions here from the chat about the stakes for us here locally, about what happens in Hampton. So one of the questions is from Mary McCarthy. She says, what's the likelihood that the redistricting tampers with our state rep numbers, and will they try to align us with other towns?
Sure.
Any thoughts on that? From any of our panelists?
I think that's very likely. I mean, I think what we're trying to do is, although, I mean, the intent is that you would have, the lowest number ratio of representatives of citizens to representatives, but the Republicans aren't bound by that. If the Republicans had their way, there would be a 90-member district in Rockingham County at large, and that would be easy enough to vote that 90, just vote the Republicans in the 90-member district. It's when you combine communities that are not of like, not necessarily alike, that you make it difficult for sometimes Democrats to emerge. If you look at the past, our Hampton seats have been, there's been Hampton and Hampton Falls for a long time. They were together, and I can remember when I was a Hampton rep and Hampton Falls was in the district. Bev Hollingworth will remember this, is just, you do well in Hampton and then you die in Hampton Falls because it's so, the numbers are there. And they could, I don't want to suggest this all, but they, I can see a scenario where Hampton and Hampton Falls would be lumped together to try to dilute the Democratic vote or increase the Republican vote. I mean, I'm not, who knows what they will come up with, but we're trying to adhere to fair districts. If we get fair districts, and we have this structural problem where the large towns of Salem, Londonderry, Windham, and Derry refuse to have, they will not subdivide so that you have large, 12, 13-member districts. It's really hard to make a selection with that, to have your vote have any meaning when just the default position is a Republican position. We have to figure out that's a litigation strategy, but we have to figure out a way to break up those big multi-member districts so that we can have a fair election and compete, back and forth. So the flotarial districts are really always suspect to, to manipulation.
Just thinking out loud here briefly is how complicated it makes it for incumbents and anyone who's thinking about what's next. Is you've got, they put in a bill in the House to move the primary to June. and we're not going to see even the beginnings of redistricting until the fall. Nobody knows what the heck they're going to be doing come the year after. And I know a lot of people make their decisions sometimes a year before. So it's going to be a very strange period for everybody as to how to plan for the future.
You know, you look what they did last time to dilute the Portsmouth vote, where they took Ward 6 of Portsmouth. That Portsmouth was a pretty tall, and they take one ward of Portsmouth and put it with the Newfields, Greenland, and Northampton. And of course, you know, to a certain extent, that succeeded because it's competitive enough that, you know, Republicans took those seats for a couple times. So you could not, you know, they were Portsmouth being represented by a Republican was just that was not, nobody liked that.
But we got it back, Rennie.
Pardon?
We got it
back.
back.
But because we worked hard at it. But that's just, you know, thank God for Joan Hamlet. But that is the kind of challenges that we can expect. I mean, just look at the, you know, the executive council district number 2, which goes, you know, touches 3 states.
So I have a question here, and I kind of want to reframe it a little bit for Senators Perkins, Kwoka, and Sherman. So the question is, how much worse can it get for Democrats? And I guess they're looking at 2020 and feeling just the incredible sort of deflation that we all felt after seeing those state level results. But I kind of want to reframe this a little bit because I know, Senator Sherman, you're one of the only senators in our caucus to have held on to a seat that was flipped in 2018, right? And so I want to ask you both, not how much worse it can get, but what is giving you hope right now that it can get better?
Well, that's a really good question. I can't imagine, as long as they have control of redistricting, that it's going to get better. I think my hope for it getting better is the fact that we're meeting here tonight, and that so many towns have passed resolutions that they want independent redistricting. They want their votes to count. One of the things, many of you know that I was vice chair of election law, but then I was on the select committee for the 2020 elections. And we met over 6 weeks, you know, many, many hours each week to come up with a way to make sure that the 2020 elections were both safe and secure. And all of that effort is completely undermined if districts are gerrymandered. You can have the safest and most secure election in the world, but if your vote doesn't count because somebody has fiddled with the district lines, all bets are off. And so that, you know, the pride of New Hampshire is the fairness of our elections. And so my hope, my biggest hope, is the work that Rennie's doing along with the other House members to make sure the House committee is fair. My hope is the fact that everybody is geared up and jazzed up about redistricting. They're starting to understand it. They understand how important it is. And, but I don't have a lot of hope that, you know, my district is, I'm like the little terrier that's yapping at the Republican heels. They don't want me there. And they made that clear. Almost $1 million was spent to defeat me. And, you know, many of you know that I had to raise $320,000 to win. And we spent virtually all of that while my opponent self-funded his campaign and then had incredible amounts of outside money coming in. So if it's really, I guess actually the fact that I won and that Kevin Kavanaugh won, which is the other purple district, that's a testament to the people of New Hampshire that they want fairness. So those are the things that give me hope. The fact that Kevin and I could win against all odds, the fact that a lot of people are really upset about this and involved and engaged, that gives me hope. But the fact that the Republicans control redistricting does not give me hope except for my hero, Rennie Cushing, being there in their way.
Thank you very much. And how about Senator Perkins Kwoka?
So, it may just be my personality, but but I am hopeful. I mean, history is long, and when we look at what's happening in New Hampshire, and we take a long view, the state's changed a lot from when I was a little girl in Stratham, and I think that it's just going to continue to change. If you look at the primary voting in much of our state from 2016 to 2020, it's bluer, and so we may have maps against us and we may feel a little discouraged at a point in time, but I think I see a lot of this sort of extremist activity as a last gasp, and it's just, it puts Republicans squarely out of touch with voters. The Republican Party is in shambles nationally and locally. And so I think that we're on the right side of history here. I think that if you look at the economy under Democrats, especially Democratic presidents over the past 60 years, you'll see that, we know how to govern, we know how to take care of people, we know how to take care of their homes, we know how to take care of their jobs, we know how to take care of their children. And that's where people's votes are. That's where their hearts are, is in their homes. And, Democrats know how to do that, right? We know how to take care of problems, not, do something easy and ideological, but really look at the whole picture and take the steps that are needed and clean it up for the long term and take care of our state. And so those of us that are a little bit younger, we have the good fortune that we're going to be here for a long time, and we've got a long time to make these changes, and we've got a long time to outlast some folks on the other side of the aisle. So we're not going anywhere, and we have a lot invested in this place, and we're going to fight for our vision in New Hampshire. So I'm just hopeful because I think we're on the right side of history and we're going to prevail.
I just want to add, the same Republican plan to have a permanent 19-5 Senate majority also envisioned having a permanent Republican majority in the House. And the Republicans in the 2011, 2012 session were so outrageous under Bill O'Brien, and the +3 Republican plan for House districts ended up having the Democrats overcome that and take power. And I fully expect the same thing to take place in 2022. That it doesn't matter what plan the Republicans come up with for the House. We're going to take back that. Democrats are going to take it back wherever it is, because we're right now going toe to toe with them. And I can't reveal like just the proprietary stuff about the software, but it's really, I'm pretty excited by it. It's pretty impressive. But also the fact that we have like a legal, team on the ground that's experienced, that is willing to challenge in the courts, in the face of the Republicans all the way. That's something to be optimistic about. And, again, having public support is what will really drive that, because everybody responds to public support.
Just to piggyback on that, one of the things that we see in the House is just how unrelatable and radical some of these folks are. And we hope that the public can get a better sense of that. And when you have gerrymandering, the real threat comes not in a general election, because you sort of cheated your way into a win. It comes in a primary. And what happens is a more moderate Republican gets beat by a more fringe radical Republican. And so it ends up being detrimental to the brands, because, it won't take very long before the worst of them begin to go from this fringe pocket at the back of the House to running their majority, which we see already in the House. It's led by a free stater. And so pretty quickly, they become extremely unrelatable. See the baby. It just as it happened in the Bill O'Brien days, from what I've heard about, what Brenda just mentioned, that will happen again. So just food for thought.
So before we wrap up our meeting tonight, I wanted to kick it over to Lucas really quickly too, because I think he has a thought, and also I'd love to hear from him what our homework is. I'm a teacher, so I know not everybody loves homework, but I'm always assigning it. What do we need to do next? So go ahead, Lucas.
Look, so Senator Sherman and all of our speakers are correct tonight that if we just sit back and allow Republicans to draw maps, they're gonna be worse and they're gonna be really bad. Now, no matter what happens over the next year and a half, there's one thing that everybody on this call needs to do. The public is on our side on this issue. Republican leadership and Republican politicians are not, but the people of the state, which are Republicans, which are Democrats, which are independents, which are libertarians, agree with us on this issue. Politicians don't pick voters. Voters pick their politicians. This is about corruption. This is the corruption of our democracy. This is our corruption of our way of life. And if they want the audacity to say passing HR 1 is going to put the first in the nation at risk, how about a coordinated effort to take away voting rights and rig our elections for the party in power? Now, the only way this is successful is if we give Senator Sherman, Senator Perkins Kwoka, Leader Cushing, and I made a huge mistake of starting to list state reps on a town committee call because I'm going to forget one and I'm going to hear about it. Representative Loftman, Representative Edgar, all of them. We need to give them the voice of the people to back them up. So over the summer, and we do not know what the House Redistricting Committee will do. This is the problem. We do not know what the Senate Redistricting Committee will do. That is the problem. But we can make demands and we can say, you need to follow what the Independent Redistricting Commission would do. You need at least 10 public hearings. You need that information to be transparent. But that only happens if organized. And we need to pull ourselves back and realize that this is not like any other bill that we are advocating on. This is foundational to our future as a party, as a state. So if education, if you care about choice, if you care about healthcare, you have to first care about redistricting, voting rights. These are foundational and we care about. So the homework is one, email Barbara Griffin, the chair of Redistricting Committee, and ask when the next hearing will be. She just a month ago, they were gonna meet in April. We haven't heard anything yet. Email Barbara Griffin said, hey, Chairwoman, heard you're having a meeting in April. When is it? These folks need to know that are watching and paying attention. The moment they win is the moment you stop caring. I will be screaming about the people in other parts of the state because I don't know if you can tell, I'm pretty gassed up this fight. Because when I'm 40, that's the next time we're gonna redistrict. I don't wanna think about that. I don't wanna think about when I'm 40. I'm good being 30 right now. So we need to give the backup to the electeds on this call, and you, and this is something we struggled to do as a party last election cycle. We weren't knocking doors. We tried to do relational organizing, which means having uncomfortable conversations with your friends and neighbors about the future of our state. People might not want to talk about redistricting, but you need to make them care. And you need to explain why they should care. Because this isn't just about things happening in DC. This impacts your school board. This impacts your town council. This impacts everything. But step one, email Barbara Griffin and ask her when that next hearing is going to be. And then I'll pass off lots of information to Eric and to everyone else about the next steps that we'll be having. But this is going to be a summer of democracy, and it's going to involve house parties. It's going to involve petitions. It's going to involve the whole kitchen cabinet, and we are going to throw it all at the Republican Party because if for nothing else, to Leader Cushing's point, they pull every stop out and they draw the maps that they want. Does that mean we're just going to sit on our hands and go through the 22 cycle and say, oh, that's it? Hell no. We're going to out-organize these folks. We've done it before. We're going to do it again. But step one, making a heck of a lot of noise about this for the next year and a half. So I hope y'all are with me on this.
Oh, we are 100%. I know I'm feeling really fired up. And I feel really well represented and I feel really well supported. And the sense that I'm getting from everybody here on this call is that each one of us has a role to play in this fight, and we bring special skills and we also bring special responsibilities to it. So I feel really obligated to be a part of that too. And that's why we're all here at the end of the day at 8:04 p.m. wrapping up this meeting together. So Chris, I'm going to kick it back to you. Thank you very much for handing me the reins and letting me host this meeting. And it's been a real honor to have all these awesome guests here too. Leader Cushing, Senators Perkins Kwoka, Senator Sherman, all of our House delegation, and Lucas. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you, Eric, for organizing this. And thank you to Matt Seiden and Tyler Hughes, who've been operating in the background, trying to help get things done. Really appreciate it. This was a great discussion. I am a little concerned, though. I'm concerned that Lucas was so subdued this evening.
I took my Quaaludes too. I tried to relax before this, but sorry, I unmuted myself. I just want to say, Gary Patton, you're the man. We all love you very much. I'm gonna miss the hell out of you when you're not in New Hampshire. But shout out to Gary Patton. You're the man.
So, thank you everyone again. And yeah, it's a nice segue. A reminder that we are going to have a shindig online for Gary this Friday. If you go right to the beginning of the chat, you can see the link to sign up. And we have some. It's going to be fun. We have some surprise guests that hopefully Gary doesn't know about, so we can surprise him. But thank you again. I think this has been great. I mean, I've been taking notes. I think there's a lot of specific follow-up actions that we can do. Mary McCarthy and I are going to be talking tomorrow about the agenda for our communications meeting on committee meeting on Thursday. And I think the agenda is kind of written itself this evening because there's just a lot of work that we can do and should be doing to help get the message out. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Chris.
Sorry, Rennie?
I just said thank you, Chris. I'm sorry to take that. And also, I just have to say, I feel wicked uncomfortable being called Leader Cushing in this group. It's just Rennie, all right? Just
Leader Rennie.
No. I just feel like, come on. It's not, it's like people calling me, it's like kids calling me Mr. I'm looking around and don't know who.
We all call you a lot of different things when we're on mute, Rennie. So
that's okay. I do think this was really good, though. And also communications, Tracy is bad, but don't forget Max.
No,
he loves to start out, he represents Hampton. And then he goes to Hampton Falls and he goes Seabrook. He's like the Hampton representative.
Win Hampton.
We have a special project in the works for Max that we're hoping to get going on. So yeah, we haven't forgotten about him.
Thank you.
So I did want to just quickly just highlight a couple of people. I think they may have already signed off already, but Tom mentioned former state representative Pat Bushway. She's been on the call, and thank you, Pat. And hopefully we can persuade you to run again, but that's a subject for another discussion. And then we have on the line with us Catherine Haraki, who ran for state representative last time and came very close. And we're hoping that she's going to give it another shot. And then
budget committee member.
She is on the budget committee. Yes, that's correct.
Congratulations, Catherine.
And we also had on the call, and I think he's gone on. He's left it. But we had Greg Merrow, who ran for state representative from Seabrook and Hampton Falls, and can speak firsthand about the importance of organizing Seabrook. And that is certainly something that we're trying to work on. So again, thank you all, and stay in touch, stay connected, go to our Facebook account. If you're not already getting our newsletter, go to our website, hamptonnhdems.org, and sign up. And we'll keep you posted on what we're doing.
Chris, could I just say one thing? It's Tom. On the task force, what Hampton Dems submitted was one of the most impressive synopses of what happened in the 2020 election, and everybody was wowed. And I don't know if you ever got that feedback, but it was just spectacularly done. So hats off again to the Hampton Dems.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you. Okay. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll get to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Great
you.
info. Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye, everyone.